calls it racist. And his father is obviously upset and goes to work upset, but he is consoled soon by his partner.
Did you read this?
Yeah.
Chief Gerard is at zero tolerance for graffiti misdemeanors and moving violations. It's nothing more than institutionalized racism targeting the young African-American male. Where are you going?
I'm speaking at an elementary school.
You gonna show them your gun?
I'll be locked in my glove compartment. One of them staring at my gun and asking me how many bad guys I've killed.
Chief, this is a good policy. Not that you asked.
According to my son, the fact checker, we arrested 107 men between the ages of 18 and 24 last month. 82 of them were either black or Hispanic.
Tagging leads to gang wars. Gang wars mean drive-bys, which definitely count as moving violations.
Can I ask you something?
As an African-American,
As a cop, is that article going to stop my guys in the street from doing their job?
all I need to know is that zero tolerance is zero tolerance no matter what color the person behind the wheel. Tell you what, I would personally bust a rich white guy today.
I'll be back in an hour.
What's disturbing about this exchange is the absence of any hint of racial awareness on the part of Lieutenant Williams concerning the racial fairness of this policy. Her silence does not diminish the power of validation procured by her race. The mere fact that the actress is black validates her character's assessment of this racial matter and by extension Will's goodness. Will's response is telling since it reveals his reluctance to figure Lieutenant Williams' race as relevant to her comments. I have a lot of things to say about this, but I'm going to rush. But what I wanted to say is that what's interesting is how her race is exploited in another instance. So in a prior exchange, he asks her to speak on the fairness of a certain kind of policy. And he doesn't say it, but we know that her race is very relevant here. But in this episode, he stresses her identity as a cop. So I think that what's interesting about that positioning is that Lieutenant Williams' race is likewise exploited towards multiple ends in both of these exchanges. Either way, Will emerges as a good guy, first for appreciating her race as relevant to claims about racist cops, and second by ignoring her race in favor of her status as a cop and weighing the merits of a policy that disproportionately affects blacks and other minorities. Okay. I'm going to stop here. The last clip I was going to show was of Joan double dutching with a black homeless girl who they called Casper because she disappears. And the scene shows them double dutching together. Joan means to help this girl, but in the end the girl goes away in search of her father. And as they jump together, there's a kind of very cheesy rap ditty that proclaims their ethnic unification. And it's really this kind of multicultural celebration of interracial harmony and unity. Now, some of you might say, you know, am I asking too much from primetime TV? Perhaps, but for me, my expectations of the show were not unlike my expectations of students in my discussions about race and privilege. When I discuss these issues with them, it helps, I'm ending now. It helps if I acknowledge that the work is difficult for me as an African American, lest my white students confuse my comments as a black rant, or other non-white students become resistant to the task of examining their relative privileges. It is especially helpful too if my comments are as sincere and unambiguous as Rebecca's initial intervention with Kevin. If my students meet me halfway in this vulnerable exercise, I must return to them a gaze like hers, one that is neither apologetic nor overly gracious, but instead appreciative. If I have any hope for influencing the way they think and behave, I must love them that much. My appreciation for Joan of Arcadia and its cast lingers still, amidst this critical testament. Kevin and Rebecca's relationship reveals TV's considerable promise, as well as its incessant limitations in telling stories about race, whiteness, and disability. It also reminds us that we must nurture not just faith, but accountability when representing these messy and moral issues. Thank you.
Next speaker is Amir Hussain, who's an associate professor in the Department of Theological Studies at Loyola Marymount here in LA, and he teaches courses on world religions. His specialty is the study of contemporary Muslim societies in North America, and he's the author of Oil and Water,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you. What is that? Thank you. It's a delight to be here at SC. I always, when I come here, try to drive by the shrine. I did that this morning, the Shrine Auditorium. It's a wonderful image for me. Gulzar Haider is a Muslim architect in North America, and he talks about first coming to LA and, as a Muslim, seeing these domes and thinking, well, that must be the mosque, and going and being a little disappointed that, in fact, it wasn't the local mosque. Made him realize that the image and the reality in Los Angeles may be a little bit different. Since we are in Los Angeles, let me take most of my time to talk about me. I came to Canada in 1970 from Pakistan with my parents. At that point, there were about 34,000 Muslims in Canada. In 2001, there were about 580,000 Muslims in Canada. While that population has grown tremendously in North America, we, self-identifying as a Muslim, are almost totally absent from characters on television. As a kid, I had Haji from Johnny Quest as the only Muslim that I could identify on television, with the added bonus that he was also East Indian. I was a little puzzled as to how a child had made the trip to Mecca and had become, earned the title of Haji. A little more confused in the 1990s when his surname was Haji Singh, which is a Sikh name, so how he was a Muslim and a Sikh at the same time was a little puzzling. We, of course, had Jamie Farr on MASH playing Max Klinger, but as a Lebanese Christian, of course, not as a Muslim. Tony Shalhoub as Monk in Monk, brilliant detective but suffering from OCD. Most of the Arabs on television, or Casey Kasem on radio, in fact, were Christian and not Muslim. Elijah talked about his moment of realization of adult television. For me, it was watching Roots in 1977, and was amazed to learn that Kunta Kinte was a Muslim. I'd known about African American athletes who converted to Islam, Ali, the greatest who came to Sunni Islam by the nation, Kareem, sorry to mention a Bruin here, who came straight into Sunni Islam. In 1978, the character that Tim Reed played, Venus Flytrap, in WKRP in Cincinnati, one of the episodes in the final season had him being arrested, case of mistaken identity, and the detective in an elevator asking if he was a Muslim. And I love that pronunciation, a Muslim. We've had a huge increase in the Muslim population in North America, and yet the number of Muslim characters have remained negligible. The few that do exist are of alien, violent men. And that's what I want to talk about is Muslim portrayals in the 2 seasons of Sleeper Cell, the first show on American TV created to examine Muslim lives post 9/11. We could talk about characters in shows like Oz. Elijah mentioned the Kareem Said character. In Lost, the Saijara character. In 24, in Jag, CSIS, the unit. But I don't think they'd add anything to this argument that Muslims aren't recognized in American television as ordinary citizens of this country, but instead portrayed as dangerous immigrants with a religion that is alien and evil. Moreover, their lived religion, using the subtitle of our book, consists solely of expressions of violence. There seems to be no other substantive practice that embodies Islamic faith on television. At this point, I want to thank both Jane and Diane for inviting me into this book project, and also for the panel on Wednesday. For those of you that weren't here, had a wonderful panel, God, Good and Evil, on terror and torture. And that, for me, was I'm so grateful that I lived to see this day, because I'd never thought I would live to see this day. In the question and answer period, you had Kamran Pasha was one of the panelists, and he's one of the few Muslims working in Hollywood. And he's talking about this new series he's doing, Kings, based on the portrayal of King David. And he talked about King David as a terrorist, which raised the ire of someone in the audience who said, as a Jew, she was concerned about a Muslim representing her religion on television. And I thought, this is brilliant. We finally come full circle, where you've got people concerned that Muslims are stereotyping other characters on TV. It's not great, but you live with what you can. Yeah. The media it's almost impossible to overstate